A very warm peace be upon you and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating passage from the Quran, and it's one that connects something you might not think about every day, a calendar, to these huge real-world challenges of community, commitment, and ultimately, courage.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the ideal, this divinely ordered calendar. Then we'll look at two big problems that chip away at that ideal, one at a huge societal level and one that's deeply personal. After that, we'll get into the very high stakes involved before, finally, uncovering the remedy.
All right, first up, the sacred calendar. To really get what this passage is talking about, we have to start here, with the foundation it's all built on. And that's this idea that time itself has a sacred structure, that it's divinely ordered. So the Quran starts by laying down a universal standard, a 12-month lunar calendar. And it says this has been the system basically from the day he created the heavens and the earth. But, and this is key, within that year, it singles out 4 of those months as being sacred, or hurum.
Now, you can really see the practical genius behind this. These weren't just, random holidays. Forbidding any fighting during these months created these predictable, reliable windows of peace, and that was absolutely crucial for the fabric of society. It meant people could travel safely for the pilgrimage, truces could actually hold, and business could flourish. So respecting this sacred time was essential for both worship and just basic social order.
Okay, so that's the ideal. But what happens when people decide to, mess with that divine system just to make their own lives easier? And that brings us to our second section, what our source material calls calendrical cheating.
The text immediately calls out this specific pre-Islamic practice known as nasī. And this was basically a loophole. It was a way to postpone or just shuffle the sacred months around whenever it suited a tribe's political or military goals. Calendrical cheating is, I think, the perfect way to describe it. And this right here really illustrates the core conflict. On one side, you've got God's calendar. It's fixed, it's divine, and it's designed for order and honesty. And on the other side, you've got nasī. It's manipulated by human whims, it's driven by convenience, and in the end, it just creates legal chaos. The Quran does not mince words here. It calls this an increase in disbelief, because you're literally swapping out a divine law for human desire.
Now, from this big, systemic problem, the passage does something fascinating. It pivots to something deeply personal, showing us that these two things are really just two sides of the same coin. This is section 3, the heavy pull of earth.
The whole tone just shifts dramatically. God asks this sharp, almost painfully direct question to the believers. Now, the context here was a call to mobilize that was going to require a lot of sacrifice, and some people were dragging their feet. And the verse diagnoses the reason why. They adhere heavily to the earth. They're clinging to their comforts, their stuff, their daily routines.
So you see the connection? It's so important. Calendrical cheating is the system-wide way of avoiding a costly commitment by just changing the rules of the game. And clinging to the earth? Well, that's the personal version of the exact same failure, avoiding that commitment because you love your comfort and material ease. Both are just strategies to dodge a necessary sacrifice.
Okay, so this collective dodging of responsibility, both on the big scale and the small one, it does not go unnoticed. The passage makes it crystal clear that this comes with some severe consequences. And that brings us to section 4, a stark warning.
The warning is laid out in this really clear 3-part sequence. If the community fails to respond, first, they'll face a painful punishment. And second, and this is huge, they risk being replaced entirely by another community that is willing to step up. This isn't just for dramatic effect. The source material describes it as a kind of sober, institutional check on communities that just get into the habit of avoiding their duties.
And just to drive the point home, the verse adds this incredibly powerful reminder: and you will not harm him at all. This makes it so clear that God's plans aren't held hostage by what we do or don't do. The divine will moves forward. The only ones who actually suffer from this failure are the people themselves. Accountability is very, very real. So after that pretty intense warning, the passage starts to build towards a message of hope and a very clear call to action, which brings us to our 5th and final section, trust, then act.
The entire mood shifts again. We get this flashback to a famous moment in Islamic history, the Prophet Muhammad hiding in a cave with his companion Abu Bakr as they're fleeing Mecca. And at this moment of what seems like certain death, he says these words of just profound reassurance. It's a powerful reminder that divine support is there even when things look completely hopeless.
And that story from the cave,
It is the perfect illustration of a core Islamic concept, tawakkul, or reliance on God. Now, the crucial lesson here is that tawakkul is not passive waiting. It's not an excuse to just sit back and hope for the best. It is steady, courageous action that is rooted in that deep confidence of divine support. It's the very foundation for taking action.
So, with that foundation of trust firmly in place as the remedy, the Quran issues its final operational instruction. Go forth, whether light or heavy, which means whether you're well-equipped or you have very little, whether the task ahead is easy or hard, and strive with your wealth and your lives. It's the ultimate antidote to adhering heavily to the earth.
So we're left with this really powerful thought to chew on. This ancient text is suggesting that there's this fundamental, unbreakable link between the integrity of a society's rules, its sacred calendar, and the personal courage of the people in it. When one gets corrupted, the other starts to falter. But when one is upheld with integrity, the other is strengthened. It's a timeless lesson on how our laws, our conscience, and our actions are all tied together.